William Robert Kidd, or Captain Kidd, was a privateer who later turned pirate, and was active from 1689 to 1701. Kidd's exploits stretched from New York to the Caribbean to Madagascar. In the early 19th century, there was much speculation as to where he may have hidden treasure in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. In 1825, the Palmyra Register newspaper printed an article stating, "We are sorry to observe, even in this enlightened age, so prevalent a disposition to credit the accounts of the marvelous, even the frightful stories of money being hid under the surface of the earth, and enchanted by the devil or Robert, are received by many of our respectable fellow citizens as truths." Also, historian Charles Eliot reported in 1857, "No unimportant man has caused more fear, speculation, and gold-digging than Captain William Kidd. Along the shores of New England and Long Island, from his day to this, men have dug in the dead of night, directed, as they thought, by the witch hazel or the divining rod, to find his buried gold, and none have found it." Another article printed in 1817 by the New York Daily Advertiser said, "The belief in the existence of treasures secreted in different parts of the coast is to this day prevalent in a great part of the southern shores of New England, and many adventurers have attempted to discover his secret hoards. Magical practices are attributed to him for their preservation, and Beelzebub himself is confidently declared to be leagued with the famous pirate, and to keep watch on the lid of his iron chest to deter the attempts of daring avarice." Mormon prophet Joseph Smith was a professional treasure digger, and used such means such as peering into a seer stone, or using a divining rod to find buried treasure. Smith was also extremely interested in the stories of the pirate Captain Kidd. A Palmyra resident named Philetus Spear wrote that Smith had for a library a copy of the Arabian Nights, stories of Captain Kidd, and a few novels. Anna Ruth Eaton, a neighbor to the Smiths in Palmyra, said that Captain Kidd was Joseph's hero, and that he had the autobiography of Captain Kidd, the pirate. This latter work was eagerly and often perused. William Riley Hine was a resident of Windsor and witnessed Joseph Smith's digging for Captain Kidd's treasure. He said, "I was born February 11, 1803, at Colesville, Windsor Township, Broome County, New York. Joe Smith, who became the Mormon prophet, and his father came from Palmyra, or Manchester, New York, and dug for salt 2 summers, near and in sight of my house. The old settlers used to buy salt from an Indian squaw, who often promised to tell the whites where the salt spring was, but she never did." Joe Smith claimed to be a seer. He had a very clear stone about the size and shape of a duck's egg, and claimed that he could see lost or hidden things through it. He said he saw Captain Kidd sailing on the Susquehanna River during a freshet, and that he buried 2 pots of gold and silver. He claimed he saw writing cut on the rocks in an unknown language, telling where Kidd buried it, and he translated it through his peep stone. "I have had it many times, and could see in it whatever I imagined." Joe claimed it was found in digging a well in Palmyra, New York. He said he borrowed it. He claimed to receive revelations from the Lord through prayer, and would pray with his men, mornings and at other times. "His father told me he was 15 years old. I called him half-witted. He was miserably clad, coarse and awkward. He had men who did the digging, and others would take interests. Some would lose faith, and others would take their places. They dug one well 30 feet deep, and another 75 at the foot and south side of the Aquagga Mountain, but found no salt. My nephew now owns the land he dug on. Isa Stowell furnished the means for Joe to dig for silver ore on Monument Hill. He dug over 1 year without success. Joe dug next for Kidd's money on the west bank of the Susquehanna, half a mile from the river and 3 miles from his salt wells. He dug for a cannon the Indians had buried, until driven away by the owner of the land. He dug for many things in many parties. I never knew him to find anything of value. He and his workmen lived in a shanty while digging for salt. When it rained hard, my wife has often made beds for them on the floor in our house." Joe became known all over New York and Pennsylvania. Sometimes his brothers were with him. Joe and his father were all the time telling of hidden things, lead, silver and gold mines, which he could see. I called him Peeker. Part of this treasure-digging folklore had to do with Captain Kidd's trip to Madagascar in 1696, hoping to attack other pirates there. While on the nearby island of Cumorah, with the capital city of Moroni, a third of Kidd's men died from cholera, and it was rumored that Captain Kidd had buried treasure there. This story continued as pirate folklore, and about 130 years later in New York, during his career looking for Captain Kidd's treasure and other buried valuables, Joseph Smith claimed that an angel, who was a white Native American by the name of Moroni, showed Joseph the location of gold plates in the hill Camorah, New York. In the original 1830 version of the Book of Mormon, Camorah is spelled almost the same as the island was spelled at the time, and Moroni in the Book of Mormon is spelled exactly the same as the capital of Cumorah.